This is a Heart and Hand production.
Happy Friday, everybody. It's time to get back on the horse, and by that I mean a horse that gallops away, slows down, and eventually turns into glue. I'm Martyn. Adam is with us, the two baldest and best of Heart and Hand who never really talk about Rangers, so thought they'd just invent a show in order to do the past, the present, and indeed the future. How are we doing, Adam?
Yeah, not been the best of weeks, has it? But looking forward to getting back on the saddle to continue that metaphor.
Indeed, yeah. I think I've said on Extra, I can't remember the last time I left Ibrox as frustrated, as downcast, as just raging, I suppose, just with the nature of the game. We'll get into that and why, because I've got a few questions for you. Looking back, as I like to do, hot takes. We've had a lot of hot takes this week, Adam, as is the norm, because people are very frustrated. Football fans are frustrated. It's the nature of the job. We don't play. We're not involved in this. We don't affect the outcome. And yet we invest so much time and money and resource in its result. A couple of questions just about some of the takes I've seen. One about the manager. We seem to be here every time. For me, it's always a feeling, are you on the right track? Might not be there yet, but if you feel you're on the wrong track, it's understandable that you say, no, we'll need to change that. Where are you with that? And also Skov Olsen, which I see getting quite a fair bit of abuse is probably too strong, but a lot of doubt. I know I wouldn't pay that for him, etc., etc. I think he's been all right. I think he's made some big contributions. He's very clever. Maybe the nature of wide players, and especially coming into this new team, they can have quiet moments and maybe drift out of games. But your thoughts on both of those takes this week?
It's tricky. I can't get away with. I hate the whole remember where we've been thing, right? And I think you only get a free pass on that for so long. But I think we're still in that free pass right now. If I'm being honest, you can't go from where it was, and I don't just mean results and being wherever we were in the table. I mean the fact that everybody thought that summer window was an entire disaster. The entire takeover was an absolute shambles. Everybody needed to go top to bottom again. I don't think you can look at the results that Danny Röhl has got over the last 22 games, whatever it is, where we are top of the league in that sense. And I know that should be the bare minimum, but it really isn't in this season. It really isn't because of that context of before. So I don't know if you can look at all of that or I can't look at all of that and get hugely downbeaten by individual results right now to the point where I'm like, no, this all needs burned and all needs setting fire. I'm not at that stage. If I'm brutally honest, unless it falls off a cliff, between now and the end of the year, I don't think I'm in that category of the manager must go. I think there needs to be an awareness that this is a longer term project, whether we like it or not. And I think that is an important point in itself because the manager is looking at a sticky 5 games. Sensible fans are maybe looking at or fans that maybe don't want to be changing manager all the time are looking at a decent 25 games. The support in general are looking at a bad 5 years, and there's an argument that quite a lot of them are looking at an atrocious 15 years. So it's all accumulated anger, anxiety, frustration, or whatever. So it's never really just about the one game in isolation. It's about the whole thing. So I think we need to be aware that people are coming at it from a lot of different mindsets, and their starting point is not my starting point. It's not the manager's starting point. It's not your starting point. So with all that in mind, I think there have been some poor decisions. I'll come on to at my point in terms of things that I think have maybe not been ideal within games, substitutions, how we impact games. But overall, for me, everything is trending up the way on a kind of medium to longer term view. And by that, I mean performances, players coming in the January window, metrics are all trending up the way. I've got tried to put a little bit of context around the form in the last five games on Twitter, and it went down better than I thought it was going to go down, to be fair, but it went down okay. Your form is only relevant if someone else's form is significantly better. And nobody wants to hear that because Rangers should win every game. We spoke about this last week, but Celtic grabbing late goals in games, Hearts grabbing late goals in games, they're not getting more points on the board than we are over the last 5 games. And any other measure, 10, 15, 20, 25 games, we're 5, 6, 7, 8 points ahead of them in that way. So I just need to wrap everything up in that. This is an insanely crazy title race. There are going to be so many bumps and turns. I don't think 6 points is insurmountable at all. I really don't. I think you factor in Hearts' away run, for example. They have to go to Kelly, they have to go to Livingston, they have to go to Hibs, they have to go to Fir Park, they have to go to Parkhead.
Parkhead.
That's their 5 away games. Now, it's fine to say I think they will get 10, 12 points from that. They've dropped 6 points in the last 5 games. They've scored 5 goals and they've conceded 5 goals in the last 5 games. This is not an all-conquering team that are smashing everybody. They are functional. They're getting over the line in some games. If that lasts, fair play, right? Because you can't, if that lasts, fair play, right? You had a fantastic start to the season and you've kept an average number of points from then onwards. Some teams have had a better period, some teams haven't, but over the piece, if Hearts managed to do that, Hearts have been the most consistent team in the league and they deserve to win the league. But I just don't buy the whole "that's us done, this is it over, we're never gonna get there," because things could change this weekend, things could change the weekend after. There are so many big games coming up for both teams that I don't really buy that. On the Skov Olsen thing, it's the same thing, really. Rangers, for me, should never be in the market of needing to spend £8 to £10 million on a player. We should be able to scout players in that £3 to £6 million range that can come in and contribute. We have more successes in that range than the bigger range, obviously. And it just adds this. It just adds this layer of expectation, rightly or wrongly, and it's an expectation that's not based in reality. Skov Olsen has a goal and 2 assists, I think it is, maybe 3 in 6 games, and he's not played 6 full games. Like, that is good. Creating or scoring a goal in every other game, and it's more than that because he's not played. It's probably half a game or a goal or an assist every 60 minutes. That is absolutely fine. And then you dig into the minutiae of it, and it's the opening goal at the weekend there. Just because Rangers don't win the game doesn't mean that goal wasn't a good goal or a good opportunity. Like, that's not the same thing. And the goal against Hearts, like we said last week, you can't discount how important that was at the moment to get that cross in for Shamiti to score the goal. So just because we don't win doesn't mean that important contributions are not important, I think. And he has stepped up with a few of them. Fans will always be fans, and fans will expect a player who comes with such. They get excited, I think, and when a player doesn't live up to those insane expectations, they then become rubbish. It's not just they become okay, they become rubbish. That's just where we live. It's why I would never put that expectation on these players. To be honest, I would be more comfortable with us going in the range of the other January signings that we brought in. Players with potential that everyone is aware won't be the full final package right now, but have that opportunity to grow and develop. I think that is better for us as a club than trying to maybe get a bargain on a player, because Skov Olsen has went for more money than even what the option is that we have. So in a way, it's like, oh, he doesn't want to be here, or he's not trying, or he's just wanting a place in the World Cup. You can spin that any way you like with these type of players because it's how you feel as an individual about them. So for me, I think he's been absolutely fine. Was I expecting a little bit more? For sure. But in terms of actual contribution, and we need to wrap that up as well, because that's what we're asking for. We're not asking for players that play every single game. When we sign someone like Skov Olsen, we're asking, can you make key contributions in key moments? He has. If there was 1 or 2 more, great, but it's still early days, so I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's tried and tested, isn't it? This frustration of being a football fan, so wrapped up in an outcome over which you've got no control, and it is nothing new. I went back to 1998 last week. Adam, we're going to go back a year before 1997, first week in March, and is, of course, the famous 9 in a row season, the pinnacle of Rangers' dominance in the 90s. It must have been an absolute joy to behold. It was a pretty awful season at times to live through, just because of that claustrophobic tension. You couldn't enjoy a win before, right? Well, what's next week? Now, social media obviously not a thing then, and clearly that has amplified a lot of the the kind of feeling that we talk about. I think it's always existed. To what extent is maybe something I'll get into at some point in my life. But we have fanzines, we have kind of newspaper, tabloid hotlines. That's basically all. And not all recordings of Clyde One's The Open Line are available, but I'm pretty sure from memory it would have the same kind of thing. People that feel the need to voice their concerns, or indeed frustrations, or indeed triumphalism about a particular state of play. That season, as I said, so tense. Neither Rangers or Celtic can do what you kind of expect the Old Firm to do at some point, which is go on a big run. I think 6 games, 6 wins in a row is about the most that either side managed in that season, just because it was what it was. Rangers' good one came over the winter, that 3-1 New Year win against Celtic, being a big part of that, and really got into a good place. And then drew 1-1 at Kilmarnock, funnily enough, given the game I picked last week. This was in January. And you've got people wanting the players fined. This is a disgrace. I mean, it's a way. I mean, these can happen. Still in control, but no. Celtic had dropped points. I think in the December we going to Tannadice, could have stretched. We lost 1-0. It was one of those kind of games. Give their wages to Cash for Kids. That was the kind of outcome. But it's just that tension that someone is feeling themselves that they have to externalize, right? But anyway, we dug deep. It was a good winter, and we finished February 7 points ahead of Celtic. There are 9 games to go. That is good. We went to Pittodrie on the 1st of March. I was there that day, very early Bishopton bus that morning. We went ahead. Laudrup scored within seconds, I think. So here we go. This is a big, you obviously circle this game. One to tick off. And Aberdeen came in. It's a bit of a shambolic game. It ends up 2-2. The bus home was like a morgue. I mean, still 5 points clear.
Yeah.
We're going to Parkhead in the Scottish Cup that midweek. We'd be then going to Parkhead the following weekend in the game that effectively kind of seals it. So all of this tension, and players are dropping like flies, famously, which is why Hateley gets brought back in, and Andy Dibble comes in, and all the rest of it. Because Gorham and Gascoigne out the picture. Fitness an issue, and just the nerves, the absolute tension in that week, because the draw at Pittodrie, we lose, and we lose pretty badly at Parkhead. That's famously when Andy Gorham had to play despite being not fit at all. Theo Snelders, shall we say, was deemed not fit to play by the time the match kicked off. It's just the better team, and that's just the way it is. But it's really frightening to think how inept we are, someone says. Do we have to lose this title to kind of waken up? And questions about Walter Smith still in charge of the league title now. It's gone to 3 points, which when you're 7-3 is obviously worrying. You've lost that Old Firm game in the cup. There's a big one coming round the corner, which could bring us back all square. Of course, that's just that tension kind of overflowing. But even in the mainstream, Adam, on that morning of the Parkhead game, Jerry McNee's column effectively saying, whatever happens this season, Walter should just pack up. Now, as with all hot takes, there's probably something in them. They're just amplified out of all kind of proportion, right? That Smith clearly was coming to the end. Europe had been a disaster yet again. All of these things were there was some grain to the criticism. Jeremy McNee didn't help himself by saying, I think Tommy McLean should be the next guy in charge to take Rangers to new heights in Europe. But there was this thing. But even fans were saying, I think he's run the end of his road here. We're not going to win at Parkhead. We're probably going to get beat. We can't just keep doing that. We can't do this thing where we sit back, we get a goal, and we just soak it up, because it's draining on me, the individual who has to sit through this and has no control over it whatsoever. So it's just interesting at this time where we are top of the league and technically still very much in control, and it would obviously turn out fine that season, that fans are losing their shit. Now, we know what happened the next season because we know, and we covered it last week. There's something in it. There's always something in it. But even just the players, I think the Skov Olsen this week, but I would look back at that time of the 1990s, right, or the mid-90s, when Rangers are just in their pomp. Mark Hateley was described as a big pudding. He'll never make it. Jörg Albert's a heart-lazy chancer. Mikhailchenko should have been fined a week's wages because he didn't run hard enough. Ian Ferguson, Eric Bo Anderson were booed onto the pitch at one point. Even Brian Laudrup and Gascoigne in the early part of their career had a few doubts and murmurings about just how good they were going to be. And Smith, as I said, probably time to go, and we're kind of running out of Brasso at the club. And even Golden Balls himself, Alistair McCoist, MBE, criticised for being too pally with Celtic players in the media, not standing up for his teammates when they're not playing for Scotland or not being selected for Scotland, too chummy, letting the club down, etc., etc. Everybody gets it, is my point, because I think we do we just invest far too much of our emotional capital on this outcome. We need it to go well, and these are the guys who get it. If it doesn't, or we just fear that it won't, which is what it's all about. We project onto the end, right? We want to know how this finishes and how next season finishes, and it's just a state of tension that I'm not entirely sure is healthy for us all. But we continue, because that moment when Chimite's overhead kick, for example, I can't remember the last time Ibrox was like that for a goal. Maybe the Lundstrom thing. It's one of those that kind of takes your breath away.
Yeah,
that's why we do it. But fans dealing with nerves and having hot takes is nothing new. We just, instead of having to go and search them, if you want to read those kind of newspapers or buy fanzines or whatever, or listen to the open line the way home, get them.
Yeah.
Every hour of every day, forever and ever. Amen.
Burning a hole in your pocket. That's kind of part of my issue with some of the discourse. Everything has happened before. Like everything. Like every possible outcome has happened before. So if you are getting Philippe Clement vibes from Danny Röhl, okay, there's a scenario where that didn't happen as well. So can't you just get those vibes instead? It's what you project, and it does come from fear, anxiety, whatever, not being this thing that we all love not making you happy. Essentially, that's why I have a real big issue with the sort of broad brush stuff. Now, I probably go too deep or too far the other way, and ironically, what I'm about to speak about will probably be a little bit too tactical in terms of explanations, but it is that discourse that I struggle with. I agree. What we've been saying for years, it would be great if Rangers had more leaders on the pitch. But as you've just outlined there, Rangers had a lot of leaders and great mentality in that year. And if you drop points, nobody cares. It is still not enough. So that's my big issue. And if I take that, it's a really obtuse, isolated example, and it doesn't really reflect the game or anything like that. But if Jack Butland saves one of those two Rio Hatate shots and puts it round the post or puts it 45 degrees some other way, I guarantee you no one is talking about a lack of leadership and mentality, coming out of that game. It is the opposite. Rangers got battered in the second half and they showed great character to get through the game. Now, that is irrelevant to the penalty save. The second half, the penalty save is the most isolated thing that you can get, and nothing really happens after it either in that sense, because it's quite late in the game. Okay, we could have had a couple of opportunities, but it's late in the game, so there's no time for the rest of the game to unfold and a new theme to happen. If he does that in a moment where mentality doesn't come into it because he saves the penalty, he just doesn't quite move it the other way. That's not Jack Butland's lack of mentality or leadership. That is just how football works. I guarantee the discourse about it is entirely different because Rangers hold on for the win. And that's where I really struggle with it. Those margins are absolutely insane. They are so small that it is impossible for it to be 100% one thing and then a second later 100% the other thing. That is where I struggle with it. There needs to be balance in there for me. So
I think you're right generally, and of course,
generally,
the social media this week would have been different. We'd all feel better. I did have this early conclusion, said, well, they're going to score, but even if they don't, I don't like what I'm seeing in the second half, and we might get away with this today.
Sure.
And it would be leaving saying it's such a shame that first half we were so brilliant. Who cares? Of course, 3 points and possibly a huge psychological blow to Celtic, blah blah blah. But we've got away with one. I've not enjoyed what I've seen from this team. We've won despite ourselves, really, in the second half was how I was thinking. Is that game kind of ticked on?
Cool.
If even if Butland had saved, it's just one of those kind of things.
Do you not think though that's us rather than anything to do with the team? Because Falkirk should have drawn with Hearts 2 weeks ago, and it's their fans are like, oh great, we got through it, another 1-0 win, brilliant, on we go. I think that's us. Celtic pulling last minute winners out the bag all the time, and their fans are maybe more in the middle in terms of, oh, this can't really continue, but it might continue, and if it does, then it's absolutely fine, given where we've been. That statement again in this season. Hearts getting the last minute winner on the derby. Obviously, it is totally different with it being a derby, but they didn't play very well in that game either. So I think that's a fan-led thing, and I think that is something I would criticise as well. If Rangers are getting away with it constantly, we said this last week, then it's like, oh, it has to dip. I'm not really too happy about this. But plenty of other teams' fans are absolutely fine with get a win, move on to the next game and see how it goes. So it's an interesting one for sure. I think it's because we're so invested in ours, and we assume that if someone else wins 1-0, we haven't really watched the game in that great detail. We don't really know what's happened. We just look at it and think, oh, they've won again. We're not making up any ground. And then, therefore, they must be really good, I think, seems to be the sort of unspoken part of it, which I don't think is always the case.
No, there probably is something in there. Of course, we speak from our point of view and our perspective and fears and hopes and whatever else. I just think there's a lot at play. I'll come to a couple of kind of semi-tactical questions in a minute, Adam. I do think there's a leadership issue in the squad. I don't see anyone really organising things defensively. And I'm not talking about a Terry Butcher blood-soaked bandage thing here. I am not seeing anyone...
Your senior defender not throwing a goal in every game really would
help. Yeah. And also a midfielder who is able to just, the momentum's changing in this game. The game stops for 5 minutes. The game ends for 5 minutes, and it becomes the most boring, passive spectacle you've ever seen, just to completely halt that, and then we can press the buttons again and we can perhaps go again. I don't see that. I see players who looked like Brazil in the first half not be able to pass the ball 5 yards in the second. That there is, of course, that's not a technical issue. Of course, they can make those passes. We've seen it in the last few games when Rangers have been either holding on or they have been chasing, where passes are going out of the field. That's not a technical deficiency. That's nerves, right? That's pressure. Where that pressure is, I suppose, amplified, must be a couple of things. I'm surely it must be a couple of things. One, they must know as that game ticks into an hour, we're fucked. We are blown out our arse, and if you feel tired, oh God, what's going to happen?
Yep.
Now, I think we all agree, we all enjoyed the first half. We all enjoyed most of the Hearts game, playing with that formation, that lineup, and that kind of action
Yep.
focused style, right? All good fun. That can't be sustainable for 90 minutes. That can't be sustainable with the same players for 90 minutes every week. Do you then need 3 or 4 subs who are like for like just to keep the engine going? That's my first question. And B, when the game does change, if the opposition, like Celtic do, make changes in the middle of the park, is that not where that then becomes potentially a bit weak? That we start to lose, because since I've been a boy, you've told Old Firm games need to win the midfield. And that's where that looked a problem. But then we don't have anyone to call on. To go back to my last
Well,
point,
that's the thing, yeah.
that comes in and goes, right, and we could never afford these players, but players come at the end of their career, I guess, and they've moved to the Premier League this season. Jordan Henderson or Granit Xhaka, they finish a game like that. They just end it. And we don't have anyone remotely in that mould, it would strike me. And how do we then move on? How do we put the run, which is going to be necessary here, of about 8 wins probably? How does that happen without the replacements who can just make that energy seamless, or the player who can change a game when it's needed?
Yeah, so there's a lot in there. So I think what I would say is we don't have those couple of players that we would need to implement this style. But again, should we have by this point? Because he's went through a January window. We spent quite a fair bit of money. He did say he would like another number 6 in for whatever reason, didn't go with it. I'm not sure if it's because Connor Barron's injury maybe wasn't as bad as first thought. I did expect to have to say, based on the timelines, I thought we might see him on the bench. I know he trained a little bit last week. I would have thought you'd see him on the bench. Now, I'm not proclaiming Connor Barron as the panacea here, but in some of those moments, for sure, when Chukwueze was visibly tiring, that's a bit of a question as well. I get the all action style, but Nadiri has a bit of an injury. Dujon Sterling a bit of an injury. Roman's coming back from injury. Skov Olsen not having played much, but not sure why some of the players are tired, if I'm being honest, or so tired because they've had the week off. And this is what we spoke about last week as well.
It should be a full throttle thing every week, because
we sometimes need this intensity of the 3 games a week to keep us going and keep us motoring. So that's something that we spoke about last week and something we can keep our eye on. But we don't have those players, and I'm like, okay, well, I can't get annoyed that we don't have those players, because we just spoke about the very normal circumstances that mean that we don't have them. We can't get annoyed at Danny Röhl and the players that are on the park for not signing a number 6 in the summer, or not signing more attackers in the summer to help out. That meant that, so we do have gaps. The whole thing in terms of going forwards, for me, the whole thing hinges on Nadiri and Chukwueze in terms of winning that ball back, being aggressive, pressing from the front, all that sort of stuff. When those two dip, and it's early days, it might change, they might dip permanently, we don't know. But when those two dip right now, it's not the same. Out of possession or in possession, which, given their 2 new signings, given they're relatively young players, the fact that that is the case shows how fragile things are, I think, in the squad. So that for me is all part of the equation. We aren't this all-conquering squad that are throwing goals in somewhere. We are a work in progress, and I think that needs to be thought out. Where I do think there's differences, and I'll come on to that now, is, and I have to admit, full disclosure, I get so wrapped up in Old Firm games that I have a surface level what's happening on the pitch, but it is more about what we're looking at in terms of the game. I thought the substitutions, when you look at them in isolation, were the right substitutions to make in terms of the players. Maybe I've had Gassama on 10 minutes earlier, but again, the actual substitution and then what position they play in, and more importantly, what output they give, are 3 wildly different things. I thought Diomande was a little bit deeper watching the game than he actually was. I went back and watched it again, and he's basically playing up there as one of those number 10s or as a number 10, I should say. Given what you mentioned, and I think there's a very clear approach from Celtic, it was not groundbreaking at all. They started with Callum McGregor sitting and Benjamin Negrin and Oxlade Chamberlain as their kind of number 8s, attacking number 8s. Maeda on the left, a striker, I think in theory, but he was a bit of a non-event. And then, yeah, maybe 35-ish minutes, they started to switch a couple of little bit things about. Obviously, they made the subs at halftime. It was very simple. They went from a 1 and a 2 in midfield to a 2 and a 1. So Hatate and McGregor sitting, Negrin ahead of them, and Negrin playing really, really far advanced. At times, he was the focal point, and Maeda was the one that was dropping off into the pockets. I think those changes we did not adapt to. And then Diamandi coming on should have helped to adapt to that if we had moved him a little bit more into a midfield 3 and try and swamp those things, but we didn't. We continued to play with that 10. And it's exactly what we spoke about last week as well. You're nullifying 2 or 3 players by one decision. So you're nullifying Chukwani, or you're not giving Chukwani and Raskin the support that they need because Diamandi's playing a little bit further forward. You're making Chermiti play as a lone striker again when we've got enough evidence on that it can't really happen because he was knackered as well, having to do more running. So it's like a double negative. And then to compound that, Gassama comes on and I'm thinking, okay, that can make sense. Similar to the Hearts game, coming off the bench, that can make sense. We've got zero threat here. If we can somehow manage to pass the ball to another Rangers player and then launch the ball to Gassama, there is a possible opportunity that something could happen if he's playing on the left. But no, he comes on the right. And that's the things I struggle with. Diamandi in a position that at the game I thought he was playing a little bit deeper, but he wasn't. Chermiti playing up front on his own and Gassama on the right. That nullifies those 3 players as far as I'm concerned. Ruins the attack and ruins the midfield. But the point of we don't have anyone else who can come on and do the same job that Nadiri was doing or Chukwani was doing, or even Skov Olsen on the other side. Oliver Antman maybe could have come on and done something, could have come in and done something there, but we're still not really sure what's happening with Oliver Antman. It's one of those ones that he's just not in the squad again, and we don't know if this is the mysteriously 2 to 4 week injury that was mentioned for a player. We're not sure. I think people assumed it would be Sterling, but he's come back a little bit earlier. I think Antman's the only one that's left, so it must be him. So again, these are factors that are there. I'm not necessarily saying there was better options on the bench, but what I'm saying is that those issues on the park, I think, were caused by playing a couple of players out of position and not properly clogging the midfield. Again, like I said, everything has happened before. My criticism at Fir Park was we went too defensive. We should have had a bit more on the break. I don't want to see Miovski, Asgard and Dujon Sterling coming on in a game because it signals your intent. So he tried to keep a little bit more of an attacking intent on the park. So it's a completely different scenario and a completely different, similar outcome.
I think it's totally different to Fir Park. I think Fir Park was, he's saying before the game, he'd, take a point or whatever. It's all part of that. We talked about last week about being quite conservative away from home, and there's an intent there that isn't actually that aggressive. I don't think that's the case. I just think the drop off is huge playing that way, and that home formation, home system, home lineup. And that's my big worry, my huge worry for the end of the season. That's perfectly calibrated on those players. Move one, it's like kerplunk. Everything kind of falls apart. That's the thing I said on Extra, if you take Nadiri off, and clearly he isn't completely fit, he was second substitute at Livy, could only last an hour on Sunday. But if you take him off, you might as well take the big man off, because he's nowhere near the same player that he needs that physical presence close to him, and that's the thing. That's our big problem. Is just you can't just do it with 11 players, really.
You can't. And the other aspect you mentioned there was a number 6. Now, I think we're not going to get a number 6 in the mold of a Stephen Davis in this type of team. I don't think that's that's the case. I think it is a bit more energy and pressing and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, you don't need to be a Andrea Pirlo regen to be able to put your foot in the ball and just focus. And I think that is one thing that Nico Raskin is poor at for sure, is that controlling the tempo of a game when things are not going your way. I think when they are, for sure, you could argue that
they're all brilliant.
Most can. But in those key moments, give me the ball. I'm going to make the passes that we need. The pass completion was something like 60 odd percent in the game, which is wild. You need your leaders on the pitch to be doing that. And the people that have been captain this year, of which it's Raskin and Suter that were on the, and Butland that were on the pitch in the game. So just coming on and taking the sting out of certain attacks or whatever, it was wild at times. Just fresh air swipes at the ball, and Jack Butland's kicking again. Just stop doing it. Like, just I get there's a panic if you go long, if you go short, but more of a panic when you go long sometimes as well. So
just coming back at you, yeah.
And that is a panic thing. That is a fear thing. That is an anxiety thing for sure. But we missed that player in the middle of the park. They could just put their foot in the ball, be physical, be commanding, dominate Rio Hatate, who was having a really good second half, and just take the ball off him. We did not have that player on the pitch.
There's another show in why that's the case, I think. But this fear of winning rather than fear of failure at times. We've got a lead. Shit. Can we just get in 95 minutes instead of, well, that's fine. We should have a win. We should have a lead because we believe we're going to win. And anyway. Clermont, comparison does not mean equation. But we obviously have been buoyant before with the new manager and looking, oh my goodness, and then everything to kind of fizzle out. The cup actually, I think, means a lot. I think this Sunday does mean a lot. If Danny Röhl can get a Scottish Cup win, if the league possibly fizzles out, which I think it's certainly possible, that it's going to happen, just to tide them over into the summer is important. But anyway, we shall see. Adam, it's Derby Day for you ×2 this Sunday, because you're going to Milan for their big one at night.
Yeah, check the fixtures and thought Scottish Cup quarter-final weekend, that'll be fine. Nothing really there. It'll be yet another home tie for Rangers. I got it half right. So yeah, flying out Friday to Monday, Atalanta game on Saturday evening, and then Milan Inter Sunday night. So yeah, looking forward to it, and hopefully I'll be watching the game obviously, but I'll be slightly divorced from the madness during the day.
Not a bad place to be sometimes. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend, I hope, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.